Selectmen's meeting to order at 6:01. Everybody stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, Silas has said he's going to be a bit late. He's stuck in traffic, but we can start it out.
Hey, I was late the other one.
That's right. See, he said that both. But should I be late next time? Okay, number 2 on the agenda, lighting and design element discussion for the 140 Main Street tip project enhancement.
Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to, we have Nick Schwartz and Michael Moonen with CHA Consulting. And they're the design consultants that we retained to assist us with the enhancement work associated with the TIP project and specifically the work in Upton Center.
Welcome.
Hey,
Nice to meet you all.
all right, yeah, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet
So
you.
yeah, first of all, we want to thank you for giving us the opportunity for working on this, to work on this terrific project. We've done quite a few streetscape projects, you know, specifically with ornamental lighting, and you know, all these elements we're looking at, you know, can vastly improve the character of a town center. So tonight we're basically going to focus on the ornamental lighting that we would like to use for the project, or that the town would like to use actually. So we have you know, several different options that we're going to walk you through, and then you know, I guess in order to move the project forward, we would like to select a light fixture pretty quickly so that the designers could work to lay out the lighting, and then we can work on the photometrics also. So with that, Nick was going to walk you through some of the options we have.
Sure thing. Thanks, Michael. And
Yeah,
I'm
thanks.
going to share my screen if that's okay with everybody. And that way I'll pull up the information that everybody has in front of them, starting with, you know, the lighting fixtures. And again, you know, what we want to do today is really gain the town's input and vision for the style of fixture that they'd like to see in the Upton Town Center. And when we talk about Upton Town Center, as it relates to this project and the discussion that we're having this evening, it really is that area just prior to the community center, moving through the center of town, and then just to the south of the main town center leg, on each of these legs going out from where the proposed roundabout is going to be. This seems like a great opportunity and a great area to start the discussion and start where ornamental or decorative lighting would want to be here. We did have the opportunity yesterday to meet with the folks at MassDOT and also their designer, Michael Baker, who we had the ability to discuss their thoughts with. And we all came to the consensus that, you know, sharp cutoff fixtures are really, really good. They're very efficient. They're also dark sky compliant. So as we go through this, we'll be noting those fixtures that are dark sky compliant, and also those fixtures that in discussions, we may have a little bit of a glare issue. So that way you can have a better understanding of which ones really may fit, and to look down the road a little bit further to make sure that everybody is understanding of what it may look like during the day, but also some of the challenges that you have with glare in the evenings. The next page is really going through what we've done is we've styled this presentation in terms of the luminaire styles and then the pole styles through 3 or 4 different manufacturers. And I think I'd like to go through them quickly just so we can run through them. And that way you can kind of see the differences. And then we would love to hear the feedback from the select board as to what their preferences may be. So this is Spring City, and these are all what's called sharp cutoff and dark sky, excuse me, dark sky compliant fixtures. The reason they're dark sky compliant is when you can see here, they don't have any, they look like they have glass, but there's no glass. So this, the top heads here act as a sharp cutoff. So all of the light goes downward towards the ground. And these come in a variety of different styles. These were the ones that, looking at the surrounding locations and the surrounding architecture, may fit similarly and may fit well within the town center. Again, looking at the bases that go along with these, you've got some, I would say, larger standard, shorter bases, and ones that go much higher. Just as a reference point, when we talk about the bases, this is the decorative light poles that are at Town Hall, and this, while short and decorative, is what you have to begin the pole selection, possibly, where you've got a fluted pole with a more decorative base. So I just wanted to make sure that to set the stage for what is kind of already out there, for everybody to kind of see. And we can run through these next couple. This is Hadco. It's another manufacturer. Again, this is a sharp cutoff fixture. It has a clear lens. This refractive lens, while being dark sky compliant, sometimes when you put a refractive lens, it creates more glare. So that may be a decision-making point for the select board as they are determining what they're looking for. And again, this will show you kind of what the posts and the luminaire may look like together. I would say this is a fairly similar base to the base that is at Town Hall right now. Again, just another Lumec. This is a clear, this is a little more, I would say, more modern aesthetic. These are a little bit older, or a little more decorative. Again, these are poles that go along with them, anywhere from a contemporary tapered pole to a more of a bottleneck pole. And then the last one is Holophane. Again, a dark sky compliant fixture, one that can be, they do have this, but without a cap and a refractive lens, and then just different kinds of poles. This Delaware Ave decorative pole is very similar to what you have at Town Hall. This is in Millbury. This is a taller fixture. So these are some examples of fixtures that may be appropriate, and we would love to have the select boards in comments on their opinions as to which direction they think they may want to head.
If I can just sort of add a little bit more to what Nick was saying. Yesterday, we had a conference call with MassDOT officials, and the reason why they're looking for input on the lighting fixtures is specifically because they're in the process of finalizing some of the design, and the placement of lights really depends on the fixture that is chosen. Depending on the height and the type of fixture, there's got to be a certain throw of that light, and that will determine not only placement, but then also the number of fixtures, and that of course impacts the electrical plan, trying to identify where then they put the conduit within the area that Nick had identified. Admittedly, this is sort of a little pulling this together rather quickly. Ideally, both Nick and Mike would have been here. We do have other aspects of the project, such as streetscape landscaping, that we will have more in person. Charette, this is trying to get things together, specifically trying to look at the lighting fixtures. During our meeting, the engineer with Michael Baker had commented on sort of like that refractor type style that you see on the screen, WAE3. For those who had driven in Millbury, that's similar to what they have. And as Nick had said, it does throw out a lot of light. However, I was actually getting takeout in Millbury Center on Saturday and did observe when it was a little bit of sort of like a hazy evening, sort of with moisture in the air, there is a lot more glare. And that was something that the engineer for Michael Baker had said to be cautious about, that those other cutoff fixtures where the light is up above provides a cleaner light coming down. It highlights the people in the crosswalk areas, the pedestrian areas more efficiently than something that throws out some glare. So that's just some feedback that during the meeting that happened yesterday afternoon that just wanted to relay to the board. And as Nick was saying, we have existing design, we have the existing fixtures outside of Town Hall, but we also have from 2020 some design guidelines that EDC had worked on that sort of establishes this aesthetic within, sort of design aesthetic within Upton Center that we're also trying to be mindful of. And that's, they've picked some fixtures that at least take those guidelines into consideration.
They had in the EDC, didn't they have pictures of poles that we had recommended?
They did have some sample as far as being examples of the type of design that the town should probably do. And that's where on some of these, they're all variations all along those, that similar design style that was in that guidance report.
Can't remember whether it was refractive.
I'm sorry.
Were they refractive?
I think they chose, or they showed something that was more of that refractive type picture. Nick, do you have that report up on, or that graphic from that report? If not, I can share my screen.
I don't have it pulled up immediately. If you've got it more readily available, that'd be great. If not, I could stop sharing my screen, grab it, and pull it up for folks.
I think my comments would be, I'd like to see no glare,
Yeah.
especially coming into a roundabout. They're planning on narrowing 140. I think no glare is important. We're also dark sky compliant. So whichever ones meet those. Now there's 3 different companies. Are there 3 different prices? Are we talking Walmart versus Neiman Marcus?
No, you know, when you're talking about
Yeah,
the
I can
different
go with a much
manufacturers.
different design if one's a lot cheaper.
Yeah, when we talk
shop at
about
Walmart. But it's-
Yeah.
when we talk about, you know, cost, really the Halophane and Lumec, they're generally the same. However, I would say Spring City and Halophane have been around the longest and probably have the best track record. They also stock the most replacement parts.
That's important.
Yeah, and I would absolutely second that, right? Like, so there are a lot of people that, including you all, that are more knowledgeable about these things than certainly I am. And I would just echo what you said, Laura, like the Dark Skies Initiative, right? Like they have guidelines that people have done tons of research on the, you know, maximum benefit, minimum adverse lighting pollution impact. And so we should just follow that science and use that to guide our design decisions. And I think there's a way to meld sort of the design aesthetic with the light pollution, with the glare, and we trust.
And I would also, you know, considering that some of our systems are older and we're, you know, for example, like Marchand was in saying, they don't make these parts for some of these trucks anymore. If all 3 being similar in price, I would prefer to go with a longer standing company who has more parts available, who's been around longer, so that if something does go wrong 5, 10, 15 years down the road, we're not trying to either match or replace everything because somebody is, I mean, and I know nobody knows whether or not someone's going out of business, but hopefully the longer you've been here, the longer you'll stand.
Yeah,
And we're into no glare.
And no glare, yes. I think that's extremely important.
Those have glare.
Yes, Ed, please.
One of the comments that I made in a meeting with a month or two ago was that hopefully eventually something like this can expand down 140 into the West Upton area.
Exactly.
Decisions are made today can fit and material can be available and be similar to areas of West Upton, maybe 5, 10, 15 years from now as
Connect that stretch as it develops.
for increasing the historic area and the historic lighting.
I agree, Ed. And you know, it's funny, until you start looking for these, you don't see them.
Any idea how many fixtures ballpark this area would encompass? I know it's dependent on how much light each one throws, but if we're looking at 10 fixtures to 30, are we looking at 20, we're looking at 50? How many light poles does the state think would be in the roundabout?
Because, so around the roundabout, you're talking about at least 2 for every crosswalk, because that's one of the things you need to illuminate, and then higher ones up at some of the intersections. Nick or Mike, in looking at the plans that MassDOT was sharing on the screen, are you able to sort of guesstimate what we'd be looking at? We can almost, if you don't have anything in mind, can almost sort of guesstimate based on looking at an ortho photo. But we do know that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 crosswalks within the immediate town common and roundabout area. So you're already talking about 16. You know, you could be looking at another 6 to 8 on top of that. And that's really only within the common area. Once you start going out to the community center and then down on Super, you know, you're probably adding in another 8 depending on whether it's one side or the other. So quick math puts you up 28 to 32. Does that seem way off base, Nick?
No, I don't think it seems way off base, Joe. I think the ultimate nod on the poles and the luminaires and how many there are really going to be based on the height of the poles themselves and the wattage contained within the luminaire. But I don't think we would be too far off saying somewhere between 25 and 30.
So,
And would it be an interest for the gentleman to propose 2 or 3 fixtures that meet the suggestions that you made? And the cost requirement?
But
So they're light poles that have been used in other places. They're generally available, parts are available, and they're not the Neiman Marcus of Playfair.
Exactly, and I can tell you, it's funny, I was in Westboro last night and I've noticed they're around their common, well, their rotary or roundabout or whatever the heck anyone's calling it these days. They've recently added them to the Grafton Common. They are in Millbury and they're also in Hopkinton, but it's funny until you know, it's like the first time you buy a brand new red car, next thing you know, everyone has a red car. You don't see them until you're looking for them. So I would agree with Ed that if you can recommend, hey, you know, I don't know how tall the pole should be. I would say you're the expert.
And I do think because I have the same question in deference to the experts, and I think that the key, my initial reaction, right, is like, we want them to human scale, right? Like, we don't want a 20, I don't think, right? You want a 20-foot pole. I think you want something that's, you know, I don't know, what, 10.
I know
12 feet
they're
or
pretty
9
low in
feet.
Westboro and they looked good,
Yeah,
but I have no concept of driving through and determining, is it a 10-foot pole or a 20-foot pole? I know it's
right.
Right. So to answer that
How about
question
gas?
a little bit,
Yeah.
you know, you're going to need some higher poles, could be 24 feet, believe it or not, around the roundabout to be able to effectively light that area with a taller pole that has a good cast of light to be able to make sure that folks have an even cast of light and everything has good visibility. You know, you get where you're along the sidewalks and near the crosswalks, those could potentially be a little bit lower to give you more of that human scale, and that pedestrian level accommodation. The one thing that we want to make sure of as we're talking about this, though, is that we know we're going to have somewhat of a tight area between the curb line, sidewalks, multi-use paths. And if we want to hang banner arms, you know, we want to make sure that the banner arms are high enough, if that is a desire of the town for an option, or, you know, something that they want to see, to make sure that we've got a high enough pole to allow that to be out of the clear zone of not only people that are walking, but also trucks that are driving by. So just something to consider as we talk about heights. But I would say generally around the roundabout, you're going to see some higher level poles. But as you go down adjacent to the crosswalks, and as you extend outward from the roundabout, those would likely be lower poles that would feel more pedestrian in scale.
Yeah. So, hey, Nick, could you, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No,
Pardon?
I was just gonna say, I'd prefer to be consistent. I mean, we do have
Mhm.
2 poles out front of town hall. And I think everything else should be consistent, or those should be
Mhm.
replicated, because that would drive me nuts. If
Yeah.
those 2 poles didn't
Well,
match everything else, because I'm one of those.
So, well,
Well, we can
It's
certainly
really-
have a similar pole. But I
I mean,
think
it
one of
doesn't
the,
have to be identical, but I would think an extremely similar pole would probably be what the town would desire.
I think that's a great opportunity too. I think I do like, from my professional aspect, I do like that the town hall has its own style of globe that would be different. Only because it kind of accentuates town hall as something that's different, and something that has some prominence to it
Mhm.
within the district itself.
Right, I wouldn't
Yeah.
suggest the round lights for any of these. I think something with a dark cap, which I think
Yeah.
would help with the nighttime glare. And the dark skies, I think that cap needs to be
Yeah.
dark. I don't
Yeah.
think I'd like a glass one.
Yep. And then it gives
Go ahead,
the
Michael.
streetscape its own identity there. And then one other thing about the globes at Town Hall, you know, it also does, you know, we don't want that uplight, but for those lights, it does uplight and light up the facade of Town Hall really well. And then just a couple of other things I wanted to point out. If Nick, could you call up that last slide again that had the
Sure thing.
different heights on there? So just to give you perspective, the light there in Millbury that says Delaware decorative poles, those were closer to the main intersection of Main Street and Elm Street, and those were higher in order to light the intersection, and then also be able to put banners on them. And then the one on the right is more along Elm Street, and those are more pedestrian scale. Those are actually 12 feet high. So that is similar to something we could do here, is that along the kind of narrower corridors where we're mainly lighting the crosswalks and those pedestrian corridors, we could go with a lower light fixture. And then talking with the designers of the roundabout, we may need the higher light fixtures at the roundabout, just because we can't get the light distribution from the lower fixtures. And I think those poles in Millbury were 18 to 20 feet high, the ones with the banners on them, because if the banner is going to go out on the street side, it needs to have a 14-foot clearance. So that's something to consider. Another thing to consider is that the narrower, in regards to the bases, if you take a look at those bases, they are narrower bases, and then they require a smaller foundation, and they're easier to fit into tighter situations. And I think we're going to have a lot of tight situations on your streetscape. And so it's somewhat advisable to go with possibly a narrower base that, that does reflect the town hall light base, but maybe isn't as wide as that one. Because the wider we
Yeah.
go, the bigger foundation we're going to need, and that's just going to take up more space. For those bases in Millbury, we were able to fit them into some pretty tight situations because the base was so small.
Yeah, I think that's great, right? Because that's also what people see when they're walking and they're walking next to it. So having that at a smaller scale, even if you've got a taller pole, having a smaller base as you're walking by it makes it feel a little bit less imposing, which I think is nice. Just a question on the roundabout lighting. Presumably there are standards and requirements around lighting for roundabouts, because part of me is thinking, well, how much lighting do we need on the roundabout? Do we need the tall lighting? But that's obviously up to you all, right? Like, could we have all pedestrian lighting and say, you know what? There's not lighting in the intersection now, so we don't necessarily need to have that light, the intersection lit up for traffic. We want to have the crosswalks with sufficient lighting for pedestrians and safety, but we don't have to light up the roundabout per se. But I don't know, I have no idea if that's how you think about that or what the guidelines are.
So there are MassDOT and AASHTO standards for lighting roundabouts, believe it or not. And there
Okay,
are
I think
standard foot candles that you need to meet to provide safe passage for vehicles, since it is a different kind of situation where you're always looking across the roundabout to see when you have the opportunity to enter traffic.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yep. Understood.
Yeah.
Okay.
And,
I figured.
and also,
Thank
one thing that we can do, we'd work with the electrical designers on this, is to also supplement some of the lighting with the Cobra heads on the utility poles that are already out there. And, believe it or not, when you put in these decorative poles, they kind of stand out. And then you don't even notice the Cobra heads that are, I don't even know how high are those, Nick, 40 feet high or, above your head. You may not even notice in Millbury that throughout the streetscape, you have all the decorative lighting, but then there are also still Cobra heads on the utility poles that light the streets. And you don't even notice those because you're kind of focusing on the decorative aspects of the street.
So one of the things, Nick and Michael, just curious as far as would it make sense to at least get sort of consensus from the various people here. We do have people from EDC as well as Historical Commission here in the audience, sort of going through each of these again and sort of reviewing just thumbs up, thumbs down, to get some sort of consensus, because I think when you look at, even though there's probably about 12, if we're discounting some of the reflectors, we're probably going to come down to about 3 that we say is fairly reasonable, and that may be a good way to sort of narrow it down.
Yeah, I think it's I agree. I think that would be great and valuable. And I think we can do it pretty quick because we agree, like, none of the ones with the glass tops, right? So it's got to have that sort of blocking top.
Yeah.
And I don't like the sort of rounder. So in this list of options, I like the one all the way on the left or the third one.
So
What's that?
the Augusta
Yeah,
Dark
that's
Sky,
On the costing, I understand what you're saying, but they're not going to be orders of magnitude different.
Yeah, we're gonna.
That's the answer I'm looking for.
A man after my own heart, Ed.
500 to 600, that's one thing. The one on the left is 500, the one on the right is $2,000.
Oh, goodness.
Oh,
Yeah, my mind's
This
made
is
up.
right, we have a design conversation. We'll have a financial conversation.
Yep.
I was gonna say, I don't think the audience heard Brett say the town of Upton prefers to shop at
Yeah, we
Walmart.
shop
not
at
Neiman's.
But
Just to be clear.
an important thing that I think we actually missed was that in identifying the lighting, many of these, I believe, Nick and Mike, all of them are sort of like eligible for MassDOT projects. I
They
think
are.
that's what we had discussed. The second thing is the state is responsible for the fixtures for illuminating the roundabout. we are responsible for outside of the immediate roundabout. So
Extend.
there is sort of a cost splitting. The state isn't gonna have, isn't gonna approve gold leaf lights.
Yeah.
The state wants to be, the state basically said, look, the more you spend on lighting, the less we have for other elements of the project you may want. I think that's a good balance with the town and that where, you know, think of it that potentially they could be having to pay about 60% of the lights
Yeah.
out of that, up to 30, because there are gonna be a lot that are around
This one.
that.
Yeah. With the Millbury pole.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's also good.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Honestly, we're muttering amongst ourselves over here, but when you look at the Millbury pole, the picture of the actual Millbury pole, the light head to the left of that is WFCL3. So
Yes.
the one all the way to the left with the Millbury pole, which takes up less space and is similar to what's in front of Town Hall now. Am I correct?
It is more, that's the only thing,
Yes.
I like that first line more, because it felt slightly less.
Maybe. So if we could look at the
Look at the Augusta,
WFCL3 and then which one?
the Augusta Dark Sky LED. So it's that third one in that sort of
The Spring City.
Oh,
So there's,
third one.
Yeah.
I don't think
This
they're all
one?
dark sky.
The
That one
Augusta
there,
Dark
yeah.
Sky?
It's, that one's a
Yep.
little softer to me. It doesn't have that, the other, the one in Millbury, it's like, it's got that spike on it. It looks a little more almost gothic kind of with that.
Mhm.
This is a little softer to me, a little more sort of human friendly to me.
Yeah. I feel like And the test of time, it doesn't feel like some of these other ones feel a little bit too.
All right, so since it's my meeting.
There you go.
Everybody who wants the Augusta Dark Sky, which is the one that's up there on the third, raise their hand.
Yeah, I think. I feel like the third and the first are like the same thing.
I
Me
think
too.
they're
I was gonna say, I'm just
They-
gonna.
they are.
just
Yeah,
so everybody
I
knows,
think
I'm
they
gonna
are
be
the
between this
Yeah,
one
they are
and
the same. They are.
So,
Yeah,
it's either this one, I had 13 people say that one, this
Yeah.
one, is
Yeah.
everybody? We're gonna go between that one and the one in Millbury, so I had 13 say that one.
and.
Now, if we go to the one in Millbury, how many like that one?
Which one?
Go all the way to the left, WFCL3. Okay, did people change, who,
I'm not checking. I was one of the third.
okay.
Was there one more page that had
Oh,
a
no.
picture next?
Go, yeah, there's another.
We
Hall of
we
Fame.
just chose those two.
Yeah.
yeah, I think we narrowed it down
Yeah, you
between,
give a C.
We did, we looked
between
at
the
the other
Hall of
pages.
Fame and the Spring City. And
Yeah.
between those, it seems like there was a desire to have a discussion between this type of fixture and this fixture.
We had the discussion and the vote and we voted on this fixture.
So the Augusta
Okay.
Dark Sky is,
Okay,
So whether it's the 35-inch size or the 31-inch size, because it's the same, it's just different sizes. I think that's the design scaling question that depends on the pole height and all of that. But
Yep.
that will be the design that we'd prefer.
Do you have
Okay.
to have that
Great.
line down of it? Is that like for it to function because it doesn't have glass?
It's actually, I think,
It's-
just on the
it's
outside,
on the
it's
outside,
one
it's
of
like
the, it's
four.
just the angled.
yeah, so
there's no
So
pan,
this-
there's no glass, but it's.
So that's why.
no, there's no glass.
Yeah. It's like if they could rotate it, you would see that there's actually nothing in the middle but the light bulb, and those are the
It's-
bars.
It's very
Yes.
similar to this one
Wasn't there.
over on the,
A
Over
little
on the
top
right.
wouldn't hang on
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
False.
okay.
Yeah, all right, so we good? There we go. Wasn't that easy?
Awesome. Hey, thank you so much
Majority
for
rule.
your time and your input this evening. We really appreciate it and can't wait
Yes.
to have the opportunity to meet everybody in person and really have a charrette for the remainder of the project.
Thank you, we appreciate
you.
that.
Yes.
Thank you
Thank you
very,
so
very
much.
much.
Have a great
Thank
evening.
Coming.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank
Thank you so much.
Great
Have a
stuff.
good evening.
Nice work, team.
There we go, hey. Okay, next we have Joe, we have an ESS donation request.
Okay, so let me get back into my packet. Okay, so the ESS department has received a number of anonymous donations in the form of gift cards to Market Basket as well as Shaw's. So we have that in front of the board to approve.
Okay, great. Do I hear a motion?
I move that the select board vote pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 53A, to accept donation to the Town of Upton Department of Elder and Social Services from 2 anonymous donors as follows. 1 anonymous donation in the amount of $100 in Market Basket gift cards and $200 in Shaw's gift cards, and the second anonymous donation amount of $500 in Market Basket gift cards, both to support residents in need in Upton.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. And thank you to the both anonymous donors. We really appreciate it. It's much needed.
Great.
Acceptance of the Harvey Trask donation.
So this item is following up to town meeting's action to accept the donation, just to make sure that everything was in order. Have it before the board to accept the donation and also direct the finance department to set aside the $250,000 per the will for the select board to expend as it sees fit under the conditions of the trust. And then to forward the remaining value to the trust fund commissioners pursuant to Article 17 of the April 12th special town meeting that created the trust fund commissioners.
Okay, do I hear a motion?
I move that the select board vote pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53A, to accept donation in the amount of 1.5 million gift from the Harvey J. Trask Trust, and to direct the finance department to fund an account in the amount of $250,000 to be expended by the select board in accordance with the Harvey J. Trask will, to forward the remaining value of the trust to the trust fund commissioners pursuant to Article 17 of the April 12th, 2005 special town meeting.
Second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.
Amazing.
It was a Harvey did do a lot and loved Upton tremendously.
Meeting, but
His second love was dancing. His first love was probably the town.
yeah, awesome. Quite a legacy.
Okay, approval of contract for town common design services. Joe.
Okay, so we discussed this before, and the reason why it's on the agenda is, one, if we wanted to use one of the trust funds, then we'd have to do that by action of the board at a meeting. If you want to hold on to the trust funds, not spend for this work, we have a expense line for appraisals, engineers, and surveying that would cover this amount. So what this would do is fund the development of a commons area master plan. CHA has, who we just met, Nick and Mike, would do that work. It makes sense to do this work together while we're doing this enhancement work. It's $13,500. We have $20,000 in our engineering account. We usually hold on to that in case there's some last minute things halfway through the year. Hopefully nothing happens. The other option is to fund through either beautification or the William Knowlton as a public project. So have it before the board for consideration. And again, if you don't want to spend the trust funds, no motion is needed, and I'll just execute it because it's under 25,000.
Thoughts, Lauren?
I'd like to start the master plan. I don't have a problem with it coming out of the beautification William Knowlton Trust Fund. I'd rather save the 20,000 than seeing expenses in case.
Brett?
Just help clarify for me what the Upton Commons Master Area Plan would encompass.
Okay, so in the packet, we have a scope of work. So what this would do is basically develop a master plan to include replacement of trees, what species there would be, identified planting beds, street furnishings, which all this stuff is really working together with that enhancement project.
Yeah.
Develop lighting locations, electrical plans. So it really is to beautify that common area.
And everyone should realize the common area is going to be altered because of the roundabout.
And,
Things are
oh,
going-
and also this addresses across the street in front of Racine. Because we really are connecting both of those
Yeah.
areas under this, and there's actually going to be a little bit of expansion of the green area by through the TIP project.
Got it. And and we've actually heard some commentary about, right, like the scale of some of those plantings in front of the Racine building, blocking the window a little bit. So it's almost like thinking of the landscape design in a way that allows us to highlight and accentuate that window and maybe sort of bring down the scale, right? Those trees have sort of grown. They were great, but landscape architecture lasts for 15 years and then you got to kind of redo it. It's thoughtful if you want to not have it look overgrown, right? So allowing that view up to the window. So I think this is perfect and great. Thank you for clarifying.
And I think too, people may or may not realize there are a couple of very dead trees on the common,
Yeah.
which I feel are a danger. And I really would like to see them removed
Yeah.
before Memorial Day because I do not want them to fall on anybody during the services. And
And I
the
think-
pine that has no pine needles left on it.
Yeah, it's got,
Nothing
You
to
know-
hang your lights on, Brian.
No, the light
Can
can
I-
hang
can I-
on a wing and a prayer,
I
but
mean,
there's a tree on the other side of the common that every time I walk by it, I kind of walk faster because
Yeah.
I don't trust it.
Right, 'cause right, I think, I don't know if that's
So
a blue
this is-
spruce or what have you, it has sort of the needle cast on it and sort of it's dying from the bottom up. It's a very common problem with these, type of plantings. Removing it is great, and I think that consideration, we can have consideration here.
Yeah, I mean, this is to tie everything together,
to
but I think
potentially
right now
put
we
in
have to
some
just
large
decide how to
plantings,
fund
right?
it.
Like, we
Well,
don't
that-
necessarily just
I
have,
mean,
just when we do this
Right.
and when we do the design, we should know that we have significant resources available that we were just gifted from Harvey Trust.
Yeah,
Right, so like, we don't have to put in all, 3-inch caliber trees. If we're taking out a 25-foot tree, maybe we can put in a 20-foot tree. It might cost $10,000. That's a lot, but right, so exploring that
exactly.
potential, we don't have to just go back to a brand new planting of all, 3-inch caliber trees. We have the potential to do more here.
Yep,
So let's take
definitely.
advantage of that. So this is great. And
so.
I don't have a strong preference for coming out of the trust or the account, if you feel.
I don't either.
Yeah.
Which one? Beautification?
right.
Would you go
Okay, let's do
that one?
beautification.
It's fine.
Okay.
I'm fine with that.
Do you want to make the motion, Maureen?
I move that the select board vote to authorize the town manager's execution of the contract with CHA Consulting for the town of Upton Commons Area Master Plan to be funded out of the Christine D Beautification Fund in the amount of $13,500 as presented.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
I
Unanimous. Town manager report, Joe.
Okay, so, board has a copy of my, manager report, and it would have been online if near the end I didn't hit the back button on the browser. So, I'll run through this quickly and then
Thank you.
I'll get it up on the website.
It's fine.
Governor's Landing, we're continuing to work on on a development agreement between the town of Upton and Fafford, the owners of Governor's Landing. We're anticipating coming before the board in the next couple of weeks in order to present sort of where we are and to provide the board sort of an overview. We may need a little bit of assistance in sort of kicking the pants to get it across the line. And just so that people are aware, this is really to identify the developers and the town's responsibility as it relates to the extension of water and sewer up First Street. Grove Street Bridge, I know this is something that a lot of people probably wondering what's occurring. The good news is that we're finalizing the engineering and working with MassDOT to get their final approvals. Their final approval is needed for us to apply for the small bridge grant program. That application period for the grant is open now and closes February 3rd. So we're almost there, and our engineers working with MassDOT basically there's not any problem with missing it. It's just really just making sure MassDOT fully can sign off on things. Fisk Ave reconstruction. The engineer is also finalizing those plans and we expect to go out to bid in the next couple of weeks. It's anticipated that once we advertise, that we would be awarding the project to a contractor in February. So that's another project that would be good to get going.
We don't have to look at it now, sorry to interrupt you, but the plans for that, I know there were people that had questions about the trees on Fisk Ave South, maybe the shorter section.
Okay.
And so I don't know if the plans that we have include that, or if they sort of do that more than they are doing the actual construction, right, sort of side. I don't know if that's reflected on the plans or not.
We can look that up. They should identify in the plans whether or not trees are being removed.
Okay.
And maybe when we meet on the 21st, can give a little bit better
Okay, so
presentation
focus
as
in on
far
it.
as what's going on, because by then we'll know what the advertisement date is.
Exactly. And I know there were some residents there that were asking about that. Like, oh, okay, are we gonna take all of these? Are we gonna take one of them? Or we're gonna take none of them? And like, right. See what that's great. Thank you.
DPW building project OPM services. We advertised for owner project manager. We received 9 responses. Crew rank them, and the next step is I'll be asking committee members for their availability to schedule a meeting to go over those responses to select finalists out of that process. We also have started our FY26 budget process. Friday, the January 10th is the deadline for departments to get their FY26 budgets into us. Following that, we'll be reviewing and assembling the town manager's budget recommendation. And then February and March, of course, are our budget months where select board, finance committee bring in all the department heads, talk about what their plan is and what their requests are. So middle of that process now. And also want to remind people that the town warrant is open. It closes January 24th at noon. Some news from some of the departments. Annual census forms are being mailed out and residents will start receiving it next week. Also, dog licenses for calendar year 2025 are available. Dogs need to be licensed by April 1st. W-2 forms for employees, senior tax, work costs, and other people who get paid by the town will be ready soon. The town has moved away from hard copies and it's all available electronically. An email will go out by the treasurer's collector's office on how people can download those and, if necessary, reset their access to receive those. The assessing department is now accepting abatement applications. Deadline to submit is February 3rd. We also have an intern starting in 2 weeks to help assessing land use conservation departments with GIS mapping. This intern is an Upton resident and is a senior at Worcester State. So it'd be great to get some local assistance for these departments. Recreation is starting their hiring process. Look for news of website having the application process go live. And ESS, Elder Social Services Department, will be test driving vans on Friday. They've narrowed down some models. They're going to go test driving with some of the drivers to get a better understanding how they can get some of the people they assist in and out of vehicles to then provide a recommendation so we can purchase it. Also, just a reminder that if there are residents who need assistance for paying for heating oil or energy expenses, please contact the department. We have various programs for assistance. Also, now that we're in 2025, once again, we'll have AARP helping conducting free tax preparation services. That will be at the community center. Contact ESS to schedule an appointment. We have a number of vacancies still in town, 2 firefighter, paramedic, full-time positions, per diem paramedic, DPW laborer, DPW department specialist, DPW wastewater, water supervisor, and DPW wastewater operator. Assistant planner, and while we did just fill a part-time van driver, we're still looking for applications. It's always good to have additional. And for upcoming events, this Friday, 9 a.m. to 10:30 is my monthly coffee with the town manager at the community center. On Wednesday, January 15th, the ESS Senior Center is holding a lunch and learn. Protect Your Legacy, an attorney and financial advisor will be holding a workshop to discuss estate planning and retirement planning. Lunch will be provided, and the Upton Men's Club will be holding their senior dinner on Friday, January 17th. And this is sponsored by Country Super.
Okay.
Nice.
Didn't we appoint a DPW wastewater supervisor that was to start?
Yes, and they withdrew.
I heard that on the street. It'd been nice to have a heads up. So, and that's very unfortunate because it took us a very long time to fill that position. The best part, 6:45, public input, board members update. Does anybody in the audience or online have any comments they would like to make? Mr. McCormick?
Hi, good evening. Is my mic on?
Yes, we can hear
Oh,
you.
good. Welcome. Hi, thank you, everyone. My interest tonight is to speak briefly about a proposed Jake brake or compression brake bylaw for the town of Upton. I live on Main Street, and you can hear some of the loud tractor trailers. And it came to my attention that there is noise bylaws, so why don't we have one for this? So I sent some information out to a distribution list, including the acting police chief, town manager, and building department, et cetera, and a little bit of background and knowledge about what Jake brakes and compression brakes really are. So I hope that was helpful if you've had a chance to review that. And what I'm proposing is what many towns in Massachusetts and other states have as well, where you might see a sign coming into town, no Jake brake. Now, my concern here is not to damage any local trucking companies. So I spoke with Dana Shipping, and Mike Poselli was very nice with his time and explained to me that yes, they have compression brakes, but it's not the compression brake. It's the trucks that have straight pipes that are typically out of town long hauler guys that do that. So next I spoke with Highway Recovery, Bob Mignoni, and he further explained and helped me better even understand that. And he too understands the setup on all Kimball trucking trucks, and it's not them either. So in his own words, it's these long truck cowboys that like to hear themselves. That's who we're dealing with here. So the places in town where, it came to my attention is up by the post office, but working on the gardens down by the new red light at Pratt Pond, when they come into that intersection, you hear it. When you're on Pleasant Street by the DPW in front of the high school, you hear it. And when they put a traffic circle in front of the town hall, you will hear it. So I proposed this idea. I met with Peter McGowan back in October and presented some bylaws from half a dozen area towns just as a starting point. Peter had told me at that time he had some experience with this in his background, but that's as far as he and I had gotten at that time. So I guess I'm here to learn what the process would be to get a bylaw written and to get it prepared for a town meeting in May.
I guess my question would be directed towards Joe. Does it need to be a bylaw, or is this a DPW? Can we just put signs up, no Jake brake zone? I know I have seen those signs, Mr. McCormick, and do we need a particular bylaw identifying particular places? Because what if we develop somewhere else
The only
and we
thing I
want to
would-
add them there? I mean,
Yeah. I wonder about enforcement,
I don't even know if it's enforceable. I don't know if,
if you have a bylaw.
Bill, have you done anything to see if those signs are up? Like, for example, I know they're in Holliston. I used to see them in Holliston. Have you talked to Holliston? Do they work?
Again, Peter McGowan said it's a little tough to enforce, and I would just make it very similar to enforcing a loud muffler violation law. We have those. I don't know if we enforce those.
I guess my question, Joe, is it truly a bylaw we need, or is it just a sign we can erect?
I think one of the things, and I think that's why Dennis turned on his camera.
Oh, good. Yay, thanks,
There
Dennis.
he is, all
I
right.
think you would need a bylaw, but I defer to Dennis if he has experience in this.
So I do have, thank you, through the chair. I have some experience, but not as much maybe as Chief McGowan. And it is a difficult thing to enforce for certain. Also, when we had the TIP project come through, if you recall, for Hartford Ave North, High Street and Hopkinton Road, we petitioned through Beta Engineering, our design engineers at the time, through the TIP project, to put the no Jake break signs on that hill coming down Pratt Pond, and the state wouldn't allow it. Their argument was that it's a main artery, so it is a truck through traffic route that is identified and certified by the state, and because of that, we were not allowed to put those signs up, or if we put them up, we couldn't enforce them anyway. So I do know that there are communities that do use them, and that there are roads you certainly can use them on, but I also suspect that there are some roads that we will not be able to enforce that rule. So it would take some investigating to find out where exactly we could apply it and where we couldn't, and then how we could apply it.
I'm just thinking I get that it's difficult to enforce, because unless one of our officers are right there and sees it, it's never gonna be, the ticket is not gonna be written. If it's a simple matter of a sign, that to me is easier than a whole bylaw.
Well, my
And I also know
understanding
from
is-
being I'm sorry, go ahead.
I said, my understanding is the bylaw is the only thing that perhaps police might have to use as an enforcement tool. Without a bylaw, what are they stopping you for?
Question.
That's my question, is I don't understand this bill, so, and,
I'd like to ask Dennis one question.
yes,
Now, 140 is considered a state highway, correct?
Correct,
And you'd need approval from the state in order to put one of these signs up?
correct.
So the two of the primary places on, which is on 140 that you're talking about, Bill, right in West Upton Center, and then also on Hartford Ave, we already know. Do you think, presumably Dennis 140 is designated as some sort of trucking, and we wouldn't be able,
Yes.
I mean, it has the same designation, I would think, right, as a major.
It's a state highway.
So
Or so
certainly
that-
some more research could be done, but there's I think 6 or 8 towns in Massachusetts on the list that I provided that all have that bylaw, that all have state highways. So I don't know the
Yeah,
answer.
I mean, I don't have any, personally, I'm a fan of less noise pollution, right? So if there's anything that we can do to reduce noise pollution and disruption to the residents, then we should do that. I don't mind pursuing it. I think we just have to be realistic about the timeline, the priority, and sort of when we get to it. And I don't know that this is going to be the highest priority thing that we're doing for May, but that's up to the group to sort of decide. But I'm certainly supportive of investigating it and advancing it and putting it in
And-
place where we are able to.
and Bill, if we're gonna write a noise bylaw, I hear it all the time. Upton does not have particular bylaws that say you know, you can't mow your lawn at 3 a.m. And I know there's been complaints like that, people with excessive leaf blowers. They come into the Board of Health for a noise complaint, and I don't know for sure. I don't think, Michael, you may be able to
I
help
think
us.
we do.
I don't think we have noise bylaws. We don't.
We don't, we rely on, Mike Antonelli, from Manchester Inspector Services, we rely on DEM standards.
Right. So, if we're gonna do a quote unquote noise bylaw, maybe we should do more than just Jake breaks, Bill, and have
Well,
something for the town, but it's a great place to start, but if we're gonna write a bylaw, just maybe throw it all in and do it once,
Yep.
instead of
Agreed.
recreating the wheel for everything that's annoying. I'd love to delegate, Bill. If you wanna, with your background, I'm sure you can write a bylaw.
So
I don't know.
I provided
with.
6 or 8 towns bylaws for everyone to look at. And
Okay.
I'm not a lawyer, no, so I will not do that. But if you don't see benefit in it and are ready for the town hall noise level to increase when that traffic circle goes in, that's okay. It's okay.
No, I think we do see the benefit in it. I think we just need to make it all encompassing and see what's enforceable as well.
I think, and one of the reasons why I sort of commented to Bill about speaking during public comment was to gauge the level of support by the board, because he's also engaged in conversations with Chief McGowan, myself, Michael on this.
Whoever
We
needs to
can,
write
we
it.
can look on some of those issues. So if it is something that the board supports looking into, we can then evaluate what other towns have done, see what can happen here, because, 140 being a state route is a challenge, but because we have basically less than 3 weeks, it just becomes a question, will we have enough research done, especially probably getting input from even state officials as really relates to 140, to have something, or is at least enough of a template possible to then allow for us to refine it going into town meeting. You can always pull it and then wait. I think because zoning bylaw is dealing with noise relate to private property, not the right of way, we are dealing with the general bylaw. So there are some things we'd want to work together just to identify what form it should be. But if we have consensus by the board that is worth looking into, I think on a staff level, we can start evaluating.
I think we could, we can always put a placeholder in and start there. And then, like I said, if it's going to be a true noise bylaw, we don't have any of those in our.
Yeah.
So it's a great place to start. Bill, it might not make May meeting. Time flies, but there's always November. So we could get it started.
And that's only 7 months away because the warrant.
Yeah, I know, the warrant.
7 months.
For those
Yeah.
not familiar, literally, we are always chasing the warrant and like TikTok, the minute we ended special town meeting, I think it was the following week, we opened the next warrant for May, and so we are
is it
always chasing deadlines.
fair to say we're supportive of sort of investing some time and energy into coming up with,
I'd like to look at some of the information that Bill sent in,
yeah, he
get an
said,
idea anyways.
but do we support like Joe and Mike working with Chief McGowan and sort of to try to,
I'm all for quelching noise.
all right, yeah, there you have it,
Yes,
Joe.
listen to the jackhammers cracking the rocks.
I hear the same jackhammers. I hear the same.
Wouldn't it be nice to have a noise?
Yeah, but I'm
warrant
next
So you
door.
didn't have to listen to it on Sundays, kids?
Every day.
Yeah,
Closer than I am.
So
So, yeah,
one last comment, if I may.
yes,
I was told 20 years ago, it might not be possible to have those welcome Upton signs on 140, but I got that done.
I know you did, so therefore, that's why I delegated it to you. But you threw it right back in my court, Bill, congratulations.
We got it, but I think the point, Bill, is a valid one, right? We can always look at it. And frankly, right, they may say it's not enforceable, but if we can still put up a sign, even though we can't enforce it, it's at least a little bit better than not having a sign.
100%, 100%.
So,
One of those cowboys, quote unquote, sees the sign and thinks, uh-oh, I might get in trouble, maybe
Right,
You
it
know,
might stop it,
Absolutely.
you never know.
probably
Absolutely.
aren't gonna see it. Yeah.
Well, thank you for your time.
I appreciate your time, Bill,
Thank
thank you
you,
for
Bill.
coming.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Does anyone else, either online or in the room? Yes, Paul, Mr. Flaherty.
That's fun.
Hiding in the corner.
I was a bit late to the dance, but I'd like to report to the board that on December 17th, the Community Center Building Committee voted to dissolve the committee.
Oh,
And it's, again, had a conversation with Mr. Manager. It's kind of up in the air as to whether or not the Board of Selectmen has to vote to dissolve the committee since they created the committee. But the building committee itself felt that we have gone above and beyond what the requirement of the original charge was to get the building together because of all the issues and things that we ran into. And I would have liked to dissolve it a long time ago. But my good friend, facilities manager over there, Mr. Westgate, he said, no, Paul, can you keep it going? I need more help. I need more help. So, that's where we are. And the phrases that everybody talks about in a building is it on time and under budget. Now, not even close to being on time. Under budget, yes. The original appropriation for the building itself was $11,836,000. Through December 12th, we spent $11,372,000, leaving a balance of $463,890. However, there was almost $18,000 energy credits we got from the utilities, and that was credit to the account. So at this point, there's $481,000 left, which can be used for another capital project. There are still a few things that need to be taken care of. Dennis is working on that, but all things considered, I think we got the job done. So
Congratulations.
it's up to the board whether the manager, you want to take a formal vote to dissolve the committee or not. I don't know, we're done.
It sounds like, Paul, whether or not we vote, we don't care.
I think that building committee for that community center did
They did a good job.
yeoman's work, a remarkable job. It's a beautiful part of our community and will be for a lifetime.
Long time.
Really remarkable and notable. And I just can't say enough about how much gratitude you have, Paul, really for all of your leadership and stepping into a role that you didn't necessarily sign up for and then having it evolve into even more of a role. And obviously, we think about Jim Brochu and his contributions and his work in the community.
I didn't sign up.
No, but you did, in addition to being,
Tiered
in
aspects,
addition
we
to running the
appreciate it.
finance committee, right? So you've given a lot of heart and soul to this community, and we all owe you a great debt of gratitude, and also to the other committee members, so thank you.
Please thank you and the other. This appreciation show for them.
We will. We do appreciate it. It's been a long process.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have any public comment before we move on? I don't see any, so moving on. We now at 7:08 would like to open the joint meeting with the Historic Commission and the Cemetery Commission.
The majority of
Are there a majority of
each committee.
each committee here?
We have a quorum for the historical.
Do you have a quorum for the Cemetery Commission?
Yes.
So if you want to both open your meetings,
Okay, I'll make a motion to open the historical commission meeting. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Okay, the historical commission meeting is now open. Motion to open the cemetery commission meeting. Second. Majority vote.
thank you. Okay, who would like to present?
We can present.
You can sit, warning,
Oh,
you're
yeah.
gonna take off.
Wheels.
The wheels, be careful.
So we just wanted to put forth a warrant article for the May town meeting that would formally close the, they both have alternative names, so the North Cemetery, which is also known as the Bradish Cemetery, which is on Westboro Road, and also the Second Cemetery, which is also known as the Pine Grove Cemetery, which is across the street from Lakeview by Pratt Pond. We wanted to close these two cemeteries because of their significant historical gravestones. The majority of the gravestones, if not all the gravestones, are from the 1700s and the 1800s, so they're very historical. And it just seemed appropriate to close the cemeteries to more modern headstones, just because they are so historical and they have historical value to the town. And there's also a precedent set back in 1981 May town meeting where we had closed the North Cemetery, the South Cemetery, which is also known as the First Cemetery on Grove Street. So we had closed that because of the historical nature of that cemetery. So we'd like to do the same thing for these other two historical cemeteries so that we don't have any additional new gravestones placed into them. And also the original warrant article from 1981 put the oversight and maintenance of the first cemetery, or I'm sorry, the South Cemetery or the First Cemetery under the guise of the Historical Commission, just to maintain the headstones. If one of the headstones breaks, we can replace it. And also the maintenance of the road there, which I actually just learned about. I didn't know that warrant article was there, because actually I was born in 1981, so.
Thanks for making us.
Yeah.
So we wanted to kind of, in the same respect as this 1981 article, put forth one for these other two cemeteries, because we feel that there's a historical nature to them, and it just seemed kind of appropriate to kind of close them all. So we had put forth a warrant article here, which is based on the 1981 verbiage of that warrant article, to kind of reflect the same intent put forth previously. So.
Okay. Cemetery Commission, do you have any comments?
Well, yes, I guess we do.
You can make your comment from there, Mr. Fowler, you can sit next to Mr. Wyfus.
Which would you prefer?
It doesn't matter, I can hear you fine.
I found I couldn't reconcile the warrant article purpose. We've clarified that a little bit. And I sort of have a question of how is closing the cemetery benefit us as a community? What does that accomplish?
The question or the idea was raised to us because there was recently a burial in the Braddock Cemetery, which was very new and has a very new modern marble headstone. And if you go to that cemetery, and obviously you have been to that cemetery, all of the gravestones there are slate and very old and ornately carved, I should say. And it doesn't really fit to have a marble headstone in this very historical cemetery. I mean, it would be like going to a cemetery like Boston, where you have all of these very old ornate carved headstones, and then having a modern headstone next to one of them. It just doesn't fit.
Maybe you'd like to suggest a guideline for headstones in antique cemeteries.
I have some questions
Yes, please.
about like how often, I mean, how many, right, like people presumably own plots in these cemeteries,
Yeah.
families, and some of them maybe are active, some of them maybe are like other properties sort of abandoned. Do we have any sense of like how many plots we're talking about, how many families we're talking about going to and saying, hey, you own this plot, but you can't use it? Right, like there's sort of that human aspect of it. So do we have a sense of that impact?
In the Braddock Cemetery, there are 80 plots currently capable of receiving burials. One had one 5 or 6 years ago with a cremation burial. It's eligible for at least 2 more. One followed us up with a recent burial is eligible for 2 more lots.
Yeah.
Each of them being single grave lots, but capable of 3 cremation burials each. And if there is an issue with the gravestone or the style of the gravestone, I think that's the thing we should address, not necessarily closing it. It's pretty much closed anyway.
Can I ask a question? Were these lots that are available and the lot that was recently utilized, were they purchased many years ago?
A year or so ago.
So they were recent purchases into the historical cemeteries. It wasn't a case of somebody's family's been here for 100 years and
200 year, right.
everyone's there and they wanted to join.
It's been here for a number of years and this, county, I guess you would call
It was a,
The town family that's
Okay,
been here for
town family.
generations.
it.
Yeah.
okay, and were some of their relatives in that cemetery?
Yes.
Okay.
So like,
It's also worthy to point out, there's a distinction between the two cemeteries. Second Cemetery of Pines Grove, West Lakeview. There've been no burials there for the last century.
Right.
There are no lot records to define where you could possibly sell a lot to bury someone.
Okay.
And the Historical Commission feels that that should follow the path that South Cemetery, First Cemetery followed 40 years ago with that warrant article to discontinue it and call it a historical monument and put it under the auspices of the Historical Commission for maintenance or review. Different from Radish, which had a recent burial and apparently recent lot, but I would point out there are no lot records for Radish Cemetery at all to define where people are on the ground. There are no plans that exist that I've ever been made aware of at Radish to define if anybody's been buried, whether there are no headstones.
so maybe,
Ground penetrating radar.
yeah, so it may be valuable to sort of decouple the conversation between the two, because would you agree that the Second Cemetery or Pine Grove Cemetery is sort of inactive or dormant in that closing that would really have no material impact on citizens or residents?
As far as I can tell, it wouldn't make a bit of difference if they call it closed. Well, hoping nothing's gonna change.
Okay, so you'd be comfortable with that one. So maybe we say, all right, you know what, for Second Cemetery, easy done, check the box, there's consensus. For Bradish, where we have families that are impacted, I feel like that needs to be a little more of a conversation and maybe it's, you know, certainly respecting the historical nature of the cemetery, right? There's probably a conversation with the family like, hey, you know, this is a historic landmark. You're part of this community, your legacy is here, your family is here. Do we have some recommendations around stone design, or can we implement something like that? Or do we just?
I
close
would
it?
agree with stone, first off, if we keep it open, I would agree with stone design, especially if, you know, somebody says, hey, this is where all of my family is, I would prefer to be with my family. However, the larger issue is, as Mr. Phillips says, we don't know where anyone is. And the last thing we want to do, if we don't have records, I mean, that is the reason the town voted to Sonar Maplewood and Lakeview, is to have a map, to know exactly where people are. And I know, you don't want to say they've been misplaced, but we have put things in and found unexpected surprises, and we don't want to continue to do that. So Joe, then if we decouple it, I know we're getting two of the cemeteries Sonar. If there are, Glenn, if I can finish, if there are like, say, 4 lots in Bradish, can we confirm that they are vacant and they are still available before we go much further?
I've already done that.
You've done that.
I do have a map for Radish Cemetery. And for what's effective, it was provided years ago when I took over this job. I found it to be reasonably reliable.
And that's.
That's what bothers me, is the reason why.
And that's the record of where the 3 people that own parcels, own plots in that cemetery is recorded in that, between that document and the deeds you've got a record of those 3 families. I think it's worth potentially somebody reaching out to those 3 families and having a conversation with them. That's what I would like to do. What's that?
Tell them or guide them to at this point.
I mean, I don't know.
Comments that I made in our discussion with the Historical Commission is that perhaps Radish should remain under the auspices of the Cemetery Commission, which is where it is now.
Okay.
Because there was a recent burial there. But I think Mr. Fowler's suggestion that we could potentially suggest a gravestone style restriction.
Yeah.
Which would prevent somebody from putting a fancy shiny granite stone in that cemetery when everything else is 200-year-old slate stones.
I agree. I mean, you know, I'm all for people being buried with their family, but when you do have a historical, you know, I'm also for aesthetics. So perhaps we could say, look, you know, burials are allowed, but you need simply the ground stone or something, you know, not,
I mean,
we've all heard the stories about some of the monuments down at Lakeview and the comments that they don't fit in, and I'd like it to be aesthetically pleasing, so maybe if we can work together and decide that, hey, these are the guidelines, if you are gonna be buried in brush, these are the guidelines for the stones.
yes.
That's
Yep, yeah.
This exercise, we did discuss the possibility of having slate stone prepared. And the issue really became, well, how big and did you make it look old like the rest of them?
Yeah.
You could make it look old.
No, I don't think you could, which is why I said maybe a ground stone.
You can. Companies.
There are
Ways to
companies
do
that-
it for us.
Look at stones that look like, you know, so. The higher quality slate that was used back then, but
Yeah.
Okay.
because I'm currently investigating that for replacement of a dozen or more stones at First Cemetery that Van Lines destroyed. Here, falling apart last year.
Okay.
Do you know do we know the families of the owners of those plots? And I just wonder, like, some but not all, right? Because part of it too, like, if they have no interest, it's possible that families just own it but have no real interest in it, right? We could offer to either buy it or say, hey, you know what, I mean, I don't know what.
Exchange it for-
Right, sort of exchange it or sort of have a conversation, say, hey, look, we want to close down this cemetery for historical purposes. We recognize your ownership of a plot here. We want to honor and respect that. Can we either buy it or you get your blessing to close it and we'll close it? And right, I feel like we're pretty close to just being able to wrap this up. We just need to talk to a few people.
I just have
Maureen?
one question. Do we actually have the deeds, or do they actually have the deeds to these lots, or is it just on a map?
The more recent lots, yes.
No, the older lots I'm talking.
But the three we're talking, right, we're talking about three. Those have deeds. Yeah. For those plots.
Otherwise, anything prior to 1995 or so, there's no record, whether it's deed, burial records.
So we wouldn't ever add to this, right? Like, we're not looking to, we wouldn't sell lots. We're not doing anything else. So we sort of are limited to these three. It'll only ever be these three. And, okay, so.
Is that in fact the case that we won't sell any more in this?
Well, that's the pleasure of the town, yeah.
But there probably would need to be a rule or something stating that.
The family goals, watching this cemetery for years and years and years, and now as we grow the grass, we really like to be able to use it. It had been left in neglect for quite a number of years by prior management. Because of the quality of care we were experiencing, they decided they really wanted to put their family here because of family history and a variety of
Sure,
things.
yeah, I totally understand.
I had no reason to say no.
Yeah,
I
but
said,
just like going forward from this
Yeah.
point, would it be possible to not sell any more plots out of that cemetery?
I think don't expect to sell anymore there. No, it's not. I think a list of things to do.
For Mr. Fowler's situation, the cemetery commission, I don't necessarily see any reason to arbitrarily close Bradford Cemetery. I think the bigger concern we have is that any stoneware that's put in there appears similar to the stones that are there. It doesn't become a semi-antique modern cemetery. It's a small lot.
It is, it's very tiny, and I would agree with you. I mean, you know, you look at some of the newer stones and some of them have photographs and stuff, and that would be very out of place at Bradish.
Yes.
So if we can if you two can work together and set some guidelines, I do believe, is it South, which is across from Lakeview, should be closed as a historical monument. That takes out any issues. I do think guidelines should be developed. That's my personal.
I'm not familiar with cemeteries. I don't know anything about cemetery commissions, but I was wondering, is that something that some cemeteries do in fact enforce as a style guideline for cemeteries? That's something.
I know the first time I went down south to Tennessee, we were driving down the highway and my mother-in-law goes, oh, that's where so-and-so's buried. And I looked out to what appeared to be a field and I'm like, where's the cemetery? In Tennessee, they mandate brownstones only. So some do, yeah. I don't know about us, but I was, I'm looking for headstones and there are none.
Oh,
So it sounds like we're sort of aligned around proceed with the warrant article for Second Cemetery. And we're all on the same page with wanting to honor the history and the design of Bradish, and knowing that there's 3 families there. Let's sort of informally agree, we're not going to sell any more lots. You're not looking to do that anyway. We've got these 3 families to deal with. And our highest priority is ensuring that any activity that goes on there, any burials that happen there, happen in concert and honoring the aesthetic of the cultural sort of stones that are there.
That's simply what the cemetery commission saying. We would like
Just
to
doing it, yeah.
Suspend sales in
Great.
Yes,
suspend sales in Bradis.
Yeah.
right.
However, suspend burials in Bradis Cemetery until 2 lots are satisfied.
That's right. I think that's reasonable. To me. Is that?
I'd say.
And as burials happen on those plots, if we can set up some criteria to ensure that those stones mirror the aesthetic of what's there, and we'll figure out what those look like, or how we sort of create those.
Good, well, before stones.
Yeah, that's an
That
option.
might
So we'll sort of
solve-
figure that out, but let's figure that out and what works for us. Right.
Oh,
Is that?
this would be on the grass and moss.
Sure.
Before we, and I heard some noises on the screen, and they just asked
Okay.
if anyone wants to.
Does anybody online have any comments on this issue? And if so, just state your name for the record and your address. Seeing none? Does anybody else in the room have any comments? Hearing none.
Did you want to? Yes.
I'm Alvin Palladini, Cemetery Commission, 6 Brook Street, Upton. Thank you very much for inviting us for this discussion with the Historic Commission. Anyway, I just want to say that, like, typically there are many reasons why a cemetery is closed. Whether they pose a public hazard, or they're just a nuisance, they're overgrown, unkept, stones are broken, and, you know, they're just unkept, or for one reason or another. So it seems to me like before any type of action can be taken on this, that we should have a feasibility study such as GPR or whatever else is available out there to actually determine what space is available in those cemeteries to be, you know, for future burial. Because when they shut it down for future burials, it's like, you know, they're shutting down a stream of revenue, actually. Granted, there may not have been anybody there for the last 10, 20 years, but there has been a few. There are some people like a choice in a house. Some people like tape, some people like a colonial, some people like something else more modern. And people come to us and they say, gee, I really love the cemetery impact. I like the randomness. I love the history. I love this. I love that. And, you know, they come and they say, well, we can't get into First Burial Ground up there off Grove Street. So we were thinking of something like in Bradish. So if we didn't have Bradish or Pine Grove to offer, you know, these people would go just someplace else. They'll say, we don't, well, sorry, you can't do for us what, you know, needs what we want done. So we'll go someplace else. And the other thing too, as soon as the people start realizing that this is going to happen to these cemeteries, they have the right to withdraw those cemeteries, to withdraw from those cemeteries and be relocated someplace else. And this is the hassle. I mean, filling up, you know, the vault, the liner, casket, whatever you know, the remains, the headstone, packing these up and moving them someplace else. I mean, yeah, it may not happen, but people do have that right. And there are families in those cemeteries that are still in our town area that although they haven't maybe been there for some time, or maybe they haven't acknowledged it, there are still people in that cemetery that still have roots. You know, cemeteries are your heritage, our community. And I think, so that, given that, I think more of a, something need, you know, like a GPR study, that's ground penetration radar study, just to see what we have for space available. There are some historic cemeteries which still have cemetery burials. Usually they're a cremation or something like that, but you know, there's ways of keeping the cemeteries open. And the other point was that I wanted to make was, has the Historic Commission ever considered that in light of their aggressive protection, maintenance program, restoration program that they would like to incur, has it ever occurred to you that you could accomplish the same thing without shutting down the cemeteries?
Well, I wouldn't phrase this as being aggressive. We had a conversation with Joe earlier. We just thought that we would get everyone in the room and just have a discussion. Because I'm not an expert in cemeteries, but I'm more of an expert in historical matters. And there are historical cemeteries. So we just wanted to get everyone in the room to have a friendly conversation, because there's a lot of different topics that go through my head as I think about shutting down a cemetery, not shutting down a cemetery. What's the benefits? What's the, you know, pros and cons? So we just wanted to get everyone in the room and have a friendly conversation about it.
Yeah, and I think to your point, there have been no burials in Second Cemetery since the 1800s. So there's nobody in town that knows someone. Yes, there may be family descended from them. The cemetery is almost full, and I think the thought of spending town money on GPR is, we're moving from Walmart back to Neiman Marcus. Go check the ground every place to see if there's a place to put another 10 bodies for the town to get $500 or whatever a cemetery plot costs. It's just, it's not profitable. Radish probably has more space, but is an older cemetery, and you know, Glenn has a map of where a few things are. That's fantastic. But to know whether there's been burials in the front area there 200 years ago, you know, you wouldn't even find those with ground penetrating radar. So we took a lot of that into consideration. And like I said, my thoughts were that Radish might be a concern because there were recent burials, but the burials prior to the ones that you did this year was 1963 or 65 was the last burial. It was 60, 70 years ago. You know, it wasn't our concern to put off limits to the cemetery commission what they need to do. However, I did make a distinguish between a difference between the two cemeteries, where Second Cemetery has been closed since basically Lakeview started an operation back in the mid 1800s. That land area is almost used for all the burials. There's headstones from front to back in that cemetery. And the process of discontinuing it, as is represented by the warrant article in 1981, putting it under the auspices of the Historical Commission, allows us to go in there and evaluate doing historical preservation, which is basically outside the bounds of what the Cemetery Commission does day in and day out. That's the sole reason for doing it. We're in full agreement that Radish should remain active for the families that appear to have knowledge of family burials there. If we can get a mutual agreement of the style of stone to be used, I think that solves the problem.
I agree with Mr. Phillips. Absolutely. Yep.
If part of the stone place is offensive to anybody, I think I could negotiate a revision to that. It would make everybody happy.
I would appreciate that, you know, make it, especially work with Mr. Phillips and the companies they know. Because you hate to see, you know, it's like having a black and white picture with one red poppy in the middle.
And I
You
think
know,
we can find a way to help defray the cost. Like, I don't feel like the family should have to pay for that. If that's an issue, please.
Solution, but
Yeah,
We appreciate that.
thank you. That would-
I think we've come to a
Thank
great consensus and appreciate everybody coming this evening. Thank you.
Great.
So we do a warrant, second.
We'll do a warrant for second, yes, and I had said to somebody when this came up, I'm like, I don't think anybody's been buried in North for as long as I've been alive. Just confirm that, well, maybe, I might have been a year old. But
58 or 9, it was one of the 63 or 4 or 5, 2 burials.
Yeah.
And prior to that, the last burial was in the late 1800s, so.
Right, it's been closed as long as I have known, and it's,
But this also gives the commission a line for anyone who asks in the future, oh, no, the town has officially closed it, I can't offer you a lot there. So it gives you some.
Send us a letter, please.
Yeah. We'll work on it, I'll need your money.
we appreciate it. Thank you.
Good.
Thanks for
Great.
coming, everyone. Have a nice evening.
Great work.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you. Have a nice night.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
stuff. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a nice night. Next is an appointment for the Economic Development Commission. Joe?
Okay, so that page of the packet, in the board's packet, you have a application for consideration for appointment to the EDC. It is my understanding, and I don't know if anyone from EDC is here, both.
We do not need a quorum.
But the candidate Brett Roberts, then is he here? But I believe he attended the EDC meeting. I think there was there some action or discussion?
There was, because, Mike Antonellis, Director of Services. There was, I mean, he introduced himself and obviously got a sense of the committee, and the committee, I think, got a good sense of him. But it was referred to the committee not in time to be added to the agenda for like an official recommendation, and the EDC hasn't met, had a chance to meet since, so there's no official recommendation before you tonight from the EDC. But I wouldn't feel comfortable speaking on their behalf.
Okay, yeah. And I'm just Julie Jonkis, 56 Forest Street. And I don't want to really go out for the whole team because I've only been on the committee since February too, so like still.
Okay, so I guess my question would be is, does the Economic Development Committee want to make a recommendation, or?
Sometimes what happens, especially if the candidate isn't in attendance, they'll at least meet and just at least have some sort of support for it. That's
Okay.
what we've done for past, especially when you have someone that maybe is also new. So either they're speaking on behalf of themselves, which unfortunately they don't have. But also you're able to maintain a quorum, so they don't need it for having a meeting. So even if we wanted to postpone to the next meeting, ask Mr. Roberts if he could introduce himself, that's also another option for the board to.
Through the chair, you just got another application to the EDC as well. We'll probably meet, not next Thursday, but maybe the Thursday after that. At that time.
So are there two
So
openings?
if-
How many openings are there?
Well, there's only one open.
There are two.
Maybe there are two.
I think it's, I do believe, I'm sorry, I can't get on my computer, I haven't been able to get on
That's
all night.
okay.
But I do believe there were two openings, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, then, why don't we push this forward and do it all at once? You'll get a meeting, we'll set up. Joe, you can agenda that for us and.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes.
the select board wants, we'll certainly have a formal, nation to this.
That would be great. Okay.
I shut down 3 to 4 times.
Your laptop hates this room. Okay, so next is lakes, ponds and streams, updates on Pratt and Mill Pond studies.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. Can you just state your name for the record?
It's Dave Connors. I live at 13 Hopkinton Road, and I'm the guy with the big fish mailbox out front and
Nice.
out back.
Nice.
I'm the new chair of the Lake Ponds and Streams Committee. And slow progress when we first got off the ground. And in 2023, we contracted with TRC, and they did a baseline study of Pratt Pond. They did sediment samples, and they did water samples and some biologic samples. And they produced a rather voluminous report, and I believe, Joe, you may have a copy of that. Was it?
Yeah, I just put it up.
Yep.
Okay.
That's the one.
So in 2024, the committee, we basically piggybacked on what TRC did. We took water samples, dissolved oxygen and temperature, and we also did some phytoplankton sampling and some other samples of the waters. So we've got 2 years worth of data on Pratt, that there are 18 different body waters in Upton that fall under the
Charter.
the purview, I guess you would call it, for our mission statement, and we know nothing else about them. The two biggest bodies of water, Pratt Pond obviously is the most utilized. It has the launch ramp. It has Kiwanis Beach. People fish there. They swim there. It is a very heavily used body of water. Not North Pond, but Wildwood is another well-utilized pond, but access into that is a little more limited. So it cuts down a lot of the use. You see kayakers and canoeists in there all the time, and occasional fishermen, but access is very limited. And Wildwood Park, the gates are secured from 8 p.m. till 8 a.m. So again, we've got to coordinate with a whole lot of different commissions, the Conservation Commission, Parks and Recreation Department, the Health Department, some of the findings that we get from Pratt. One of the issues that we ran into is the monies that were allocated to us through community preservation. In testing the water, we ran out of money very quickly. So, yes, I'm making a shameless pitch for funding for the Lakes and Ponds and Streams Committee. But again, we don't know a lot about the other bodies of water and what is the health of those bodies. Wildwood, Taft, Goss Pond, we just don't really have any baseline information. The committee would like to expand out, not whole scale to all of the bodies of water in Upton, but we would like to kind of incrementally progress through. And that's just the standing bodies of water. We don't know how many miles of streams we have, and that's maybe where the GIS intern may come in handy, helping us map out the how many miles of streams and rivers that we have. And the amount of data that we have gathered over the 2 years, just in Pratt, is an awful lot to digest. As a committee, we're still beating that back and forth, and no, we don't have a quorum either. But there's a lot of good information that affects not just the Lakes, Ponds, and Streams Committee, but it is across the entire gamut of recreation and quality of life in Upton. You got anything to add?
Well, we're going to be proposing a line item in FY26 budget that will, going forward, help us to cover costs of some of these analytical services that we require. So we haven't submitted that yet to Joe, but that's going to be happening by the 10th. And I think the committee met yesterday. We were going to propose a $700 budget that would probably be going forward year after year, but at least the first year, $700. And probably in 26, in calendar year 25, you continue sampling at Pratt Pond to some extent, but also probably expand to Wildwood. And the other thing at Wildwood that we're thinking about doing as a committee is exploring options to improve the boat ramp at Wildwood. And it's almost hesitant to even call what's there a boat ramp. It's a slope. There aren't any trees that can back the boat down. And that's actually in the 2020 open space and rec as an item to look at, is putting an actual boat ramp in there. And the Lakes and Ponds Committee last night talked about taking that on.
I think that would be a great idea.
Yeah.
Wildwood was utilized much more when I was a kid than it is now. And I'd like to see it brought back. And as far as your testing, I know, make sure for Pratt, because in the summer, when Pratt is open, the Board of Health tests on a weekly basis. So just make sure you're not spending monies on something that's being done by the Board of Health. Once it's open to close, we test the water weekly. I'm also, if you don't know, I'm also on the Board of Health. So took the selectman's hat off, put that one on.
If I'm not mistaken, you're testing for E. coli, is that correct?
We do, but we also get the red algae, we get reports of it. So they watch the beach. We tend to watch the beach area and the areas we can see. And our inspectors go in and they look, and occasionally somebody will send us a picture and say, what is this? And we send it right to Mass Department of Public Health for identification. So you guys can do the same thing. But don't spend $500 on a test when, if you think you have red algae, take a picture, let us know where it is, and the Board of Health has funds.
You're testing at specific locations.
Okay. It was just a suggestion,
Fully understand that. And we're not testing the surface like I believe the Board of Health would be testing.
I am not, we have the professionals come in.
Okay.
So I leave that to them, but I do know occasionally, the counselors will say, oh my God, take a look at this, is this red algae? And we send the pictures right to Mass Department of Public Health, and they'll identify anything they get concerned of. We get pictures and we have a direct line to the Mass Department of Public Health. And it's identified, and if Mass Department of Public Health can't identify it, they send somebody out to check.
It's worth understanding if there's any overlap in the testing that you're doing, and Board of Health is doing it. If there is, we can resolve that. If there isn't, then fine, but if there isn't, there's some opportunity.
Diane is the expert. She's been at the Board of Health for 40 years. And she retires. I don't know what we're gonna do. Yeah, it probably is different than what you're doing, but if any of it overlaps,
Worth checking.
it is worth checking. Yes.
And then,
Again, we're talking about collaborating with different departments throughout.
Right.
DPW and.
Right, and by the same token, if you guys do a test and it's, not near the beach, say it's over at the cemetery, but something alarming, let's face it, it's the same body of water. We would want to know.
Okay, one other thing I'd like to add.
Sure.
The original money we had came through the Community Preservation Fund.
Okay.
And we used part of that to buy testing equipment. So some of the testing we do completely on our own.
Nice.
We have the sampler and this dissolved oxygen meter and the temperature meter. So that stuff, there's no cost to it.
Good.
It's all volunteer. But the others, the phytoplankton, that's very useful information, and organics like phosphorus.
Right.
Very helpful to understand how the water body is functioning.
It is, and it's helpful for the Board of Health too, because, pond lilies, phosphorus is usually detergents and other solids that shouldn't be there that make those things grow and bloom. So, yes. Okay, Brett has some questions.
thank you. So my, two questions, I think. One is the data that we've gathered to date for Pratt and Mill Ponds. Are there actionable insights that we're gaining from that to improve the overall water quality? Because I know, so I guess I'll just stop and let you answer.
Hard to just explain, but what we learned about Pratt Pond, at least what we think about Pratt Pond. First off,
based on nutrient levels and some other metrics, basically. It's a fairly eutrophic pond, meaning it's nutrient rich. We get dense phytoplankton populations occur during the summer. We have especially looked at cyanobacteria, bacteria that are potentially hazardous to people and pets and things like that. And curiously, and actually good news is that cyanobacteria levels that we found in the surface waters have been low and below any criteria that would, get more health involved. But it's interesting, there is a cyanobacterial bloom near the bottom of the pond, a species called Oscillatoria, which is a filamentous algae. And there's probably like this mat of algae along the bottom of the pond, very, very high density. But because the pond, here's where it's getting technical. The pond, we found is something got stratified in the summer, where the water on the surface does not mix with the water near the bottom. And that's good in terms of these cyanobacteria. They're not making it to the surface. They're staying near the bottom. So we've learned that. And in terms of nutrients, probably there's something called internal recycling going on. The watershed actually for Pratt Pond is probably about 80% forested. A lot of it is Upton State Forest.
Yeah.
On the other side of High Street there.
Relatively healthy.
So it's, and what can happen in a lot of ponds is that get this internal recycling. Phosphorus is released from the sediment, taken up by the algae, get out of the ground, and the algae die, and the phosphorus goes back in the sediment. So we think recycling is probably the main thing that's going on at Pratt. The other thing we found, and there's actually, we had the presentation, there was actually a picture. This has to do with Mill Pond. You probably noticed that most years it dries out during the summer, at least maybe half of it. It dries out, and the aerial imagery shows that really well. What may be the problem, so yeah, I don't know if it's hard to see, but on the left is like a spring imagery, and the right is a summer, fall imagery. You can see how much open water has been lost there. And what may be happening, Joe, if you could shift to the next slide, please. Yeah. So this is the dam that forms Mill Pond is basically right at 140. And this is the 140 culvert. And I took a picture of this a couple of years ago. And what you can see is that water is seeping kind of through the outlet structure. And I think the problem probably is there's a wooden stop log. You can't really see with this, with the lights and everything. But I think there's a wooden stop log there that that's not sealing well with the top of the outlet. And so you're getting water seeping through there. And I think that's why you're losing your pond so much during the summer.
So I went over there and under there and looked at that just in the past month or so. I was with Jeff Leclerc from Fin and Feather, and he was sort of showing me, so we know this is a topic of conversation.
Too.
Yeah. So I think recently, like the waters, the boards are actually, I don't think anybody took out, the DPW didn't take out boards or whatever, but what I saw was water flowing over the top, but the boards really weren't even there. Like, so it's almost like I wondered.
Repair?
Yes. I wonder if if there's some consideration or how we would even assess, like the DPW just add, like, 'cause they can drop slotted boards and like it's made to take control, right? So is there, I know Jack Johnson said or Jeff said that Jack Johnson used to go in there every now and then and put the boards in and out or whatever. So is it a question of, can we just find 3 boards and add 3 boards, and would that help? I don't know. And how do we make that decision?
I think that could help as long as they got a good seal
Yeah,
between the concrete part of the dam.
Yeah.
And where the boards are. But this, again, this picture, you just can't really see this, you blow it up. But there's a couple of iron rings you can kind of see. So that, eye bolts basically. So that is definitely a wooden stop bar
that's right.
with the eye bolts.
That's right. The one on the top, hooks, we can slide it in. Exactly. That's right.
And in this picture, the water's seeping in, but underneath that.
In between it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this picture was taken this summer. I'm not sure, it sounds like when you went out there, maybe the water was flowing over the top entirely.
Yeah.
And that is also when, Bill Taylor provided me today with the last professional evaluation of the dam.
Yeah.
And the last couple times they've done it, they do it every 5 years, they do it in November. So the water level's up and they never see this. They never see this problem.
Interesting.
The water is flowing over them.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Because I mean, you can go there and the water is probably 3 or 4 feet, if not more, below where you'd sort of want it at a nice level, right? That healthy level on the left there. And so if there's a way to help retain some of that water just by putting boards in, that'd be weird, because Pratt Pond doesn't drain by that much, right? Like we don't lose 3 feet off of Pratt Pond and they're right there. So it doesn't make sense that we're losing all this on Mill Pond. But I don't know anything.
I'm not an engineer. My recommendation would be to have an engineer look at this thing next summer, when the flows are low.
Yeah.
It looks a lot like that picture. And then they can make recommendations to replace the stop logs, do what is needed.
Because I think we want to try to maintain the water level at that peak level as best we can, if we can with the dam. Yeah.
And if I recall right, that was a lot of, vision of a foundation of lakes and streams was
Yeah.
let's preserve
Right.
Mill Pond before it
That's right.
disappears.
That's right. So we support that. So whatever resources you need to help solve that problem or figure that out or do that investigation, because I know it's a little confusing because like the state controls the dams and the DPW used to just sort of do stuff, and it's so I don't know what the bureaucracy is of.
First thing I would ask, the DPW to do what they need to do to have someone look at the dam next summer, or to look at the outlet structure in particular.
Yeah.
Next summer, and make some recommendations how to
Yeah.
reduce the seepage.
It's also part 2 of the management plan that we contracted with TRC for. So we're working on part 2 of the management plan, and they will provide recommendations on what to do with Pratt and Mill, in relation to this.
That's what I'm looking for, right? Like sort of, we did the research, we did the analysis, and it doesn't always have to be actionable, but if there are insights that we can use, let's go from sort of, investigation, analysis, learning to execution of improvements. We're here for it.
Thank you for the update. Anything else you'd like to add?
Thank you for the invite to present.
We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks for all the time.
Thanks for coming. Okay, on to B, Economic Development Committee recommendation to reallocate economic development earmarks. Michael.
Evening, Mike Gonzalez, regular planning.
Mike, thanks.
Julie Jonas has stuck around from the EDC as well. So back in November, the EDC voted and issued a letter to the select board indicating how the EDC would like to propose reallocating the funds that have been dedicated through the earmarks, specifically with regard to number 2, which was originally a recommendation to allocate 50,000 for the West Upton Visioning plan, which they had referenced as a Dodson Flinker type plan, much like what they had done for the center here. So a while ago, I reached out to Dodson Flinker to get a scope and proposal for that work, and they'd come back with an escalated cost beyond that original $50,000, which was is reflected in the new recommendation, $76,000. And we can talk about that scope. We may be at a later date. We're talking about this tonight, but the scope that they proposed was reflective of basically everything they did for the center. And the increase in cost was relative to the scope creep that they had during that time when they did the Upton Center. So they wanted to account for that. So when they proposed to do the West Upton visioning, they wanted to obviously quote us for all of the work that they could possibly do to replicate the work that they had done here. So that's what that accounts for. And that's what this recommendation accounts for, is to make sure that there's adequate funds dedicated to that project in order to accomplish it. And so, and the way that they were able, the EDC was able to switch out funds within this recommendation is because for number one, the parking plan engineering for gravel previous and wetland flagging and floodplain mapping, that was able to, we were able to save a lot of money for that because we were successful in obtaining a grant from the state to do a lot of that work. So that 55,000 in the first priority, you know, to the tune of 15 or 20, that grant was something for 30,000. So like, but that was a large part of that grant work anyway. So that's being paid through that grant, which opens up those funds to then be able to be shifted towards the Dodson Flinker plan for West Upton. So I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Any questions or comments?
What's the actual, is it 76,000 the actual allocation?
Yeah, that's the requested revision to this application is to change number 2 to be 76,000. So it would go with the last line in that letter is priority 1 be changed to 29,000 to reflect the scope that had been removed from there and covered through the grant. And then that transfer of funds to priority number 2 for 76,000 and priority number 3 is remaining unchanged.
And that delta is the same, right? So there's no sort of net increase. It's just moving it from priority 1 because we reduced scope there and added scope to priority 2, and we'll just move the funds there because we got the grant.
Yes.
Everybody good?
I'm good.
Somebody would like to make a motion?
I move that the board approve reallocation of funds for the economic development priority projects as recommended by the Economic Development Committee and authorize the town manager to execute the necessary contracts amendments with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Thank you, Michael, and we'll
Thank
roll
you.
right into authorization for submission of compliance for MBTA communities.
So that's pretty much as it sounds. Yeah.
That's right.
As
The application, it looks like you're gonna have a ball filling it out.
yeah.
I don't have any questions on the application. Does anybody else?
No, I do not.
Oh, I do not.
Okay. I won't be sarcastic and say enjoy yourself. I hate those online applications.
I already tried to save it once, and I found the PDF, so you can.
Did you?
Yes. Okay.
It's, yeah, and, or as Joe found out tonight, make sure your work is saving constantly.
That's gracious.
Because, yeah, at the end of it, that would not be, so I
You
don't
could
think,
pass it on because in the motion it says town manager to sign on behalf.
there you go.
Nice.
Ooh, I see gleam. Okay, so I am scrolling furiously. Do we need a motion for this?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, do I hear a motion? Thank you.
I move that the board vote to authorize the town manager to sign on behalf of the town district compliance application for the MBTA communities under section 3A of the zoning.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Thank you. Thanks for coming,
Thank you very
Michael.
much.
D, street sign request, Walnut Street. Mr. Westgate, I assume, or?
So,
Where are we?
I'll handle this.
Okay.
I did get confirmation from Chief McGowan as well as Dennis Westgate that they supported installation of a S sign, curve sign on Walnut Street.
For anyone that had traveled it, there is a section that very eloquently is an S. And they concurred with the request. So this is somewhat in the vicinity of for Walnut. I'd recommend that placement be ultimately final installation be approved by location, DPW, and the police chief. Dennis did want me to pass on that just, like with all signage, where we do get concerned with installing too many signs and causing sign pollution. However, in this area, notifying people their support for that sign.
Yeah, I think, I think anybody who has lived in town knows Walnut Street's S by heart. I think the problem is, since we can't erect a sign at the beginning of it that says Wade's lies, do not come down the street. I think the S sign would be advantageous because I don't think people realize exactly what they're getting into.
Right.
So, do I hear a motion?
I move that the select board vote to approve the installation of an S-curve sign on Walnut Street.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.
Thank you.
Next is E, consideration of the town manager's proposal appointment of Nicholas Palmieri as police chief.
Okay, thank you very much. Also, would like to just recognize, did ask members of the screening committee to attend. We have Dennis Westgate, as well as John Westerling here. And of course, we have Chief Bradley and Laura. She doesn't really have a choice. I can speak.
I was asked to attend.
It's a select board meeting anyway, so I'm very excited to have this in front of the board. This has been a long process, starting with Chief Bradley's announcement of retirement back in May, with then working with the board, selecting a consultant, also retaining interim chief Peter McGowan, and working through a multi-month process for our police chief search process. I'd like to present Nicholas Palmieri for consideration for appointment as Upton's police chief. Per in the packet, Mr. Palmieri has a BS in psychology and a master's in criminal justice, worked for New York City Police from 2004 to 2005, and came to Upton in 2005, where he worked his way up to detective until his departure in 2017, when he joined Franklin. And was promoted to detective in 2019 and sergeant in 2021. I'd like to be able to invite Mr. Palmieri up to the rolling hot seats.
Just be very careful when you sit, they take off.
Thank you. Good morning. Just to say hi and just give a little bit of background.
Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Nicholas Palmieri. Like Joe said, I've been a police officer for close to 21 years. Starting in New York City, originally from Mansfield, Massachusetts. So I'm a Mass resident. Was born and raised in Mansfield. Moving to New York presented an opportunity to go to grad school and also join the biggest department in the world. After being there for in the city for 3 years, but on the department for about a year and a half, I was planning to get married, was working on that, and my late wife was from Natick. So in planning our wedding, we moved back. I found Upton and it became home pretty quickly. It presented to me the opportunity to learn how to actually be a police officer. It wasn't a matter of putting out fires, responding from call to call, and just kind of putting Band-Aids on things. It presented the opportunity to get to know people, really provide services and help in the long term. And I grew to love the community. I have friends who still live here, and it's a special place and always has been. I had the opportunity to go to Franklin for personal reasons. At the time, my kids were 8 and 10. And it was a chance to be around them and see that, their school events, sporting events. At the time, the most difficult professional decision I had to make. In hindsight, it was a blessing in disguise because my wife gets sick. And it presented the opportunity to be around her and to take care of her and to be home with her ultimately when she passed. This opportunity coming up was kind of out of the blue and was not expecting Chief Bradley to leave when he did. But I felt the timing was right. And my kids are at the age where they're a little more self-sufficient now. And with their full support, I applied for the job, went through this process, and am honored to have the recommendation of Joe and the support of the search committee. Like I said, Upton holds a special place in my heart. And I feel like what we had achieved while I was a member of the police department previously is nothing short of incredible, and the services we provide and the reputation we'd earned. It was something we earned because of what we did and our involvement with the community. And I take that very seriously, and I think that's something that I'm able to continue. Major footsteps to follow, huge footsteps. Chief Bradley is he's irreplaceable. He's been a steadfast representative of the department in the community, and so some big shoes to fill, but I couldn't be more honored to have this opportunity. Personally, I'm a runner. I like to work out. I've run 4 marathons. I ran 3 Boston marathons in support of the Alzheimer's Association, raising money for them. I ran the Marine Corps Marathon in support of a breast cancer charity. And I feel like fitness and officer wellness are incredibly important things. So personally, I bring that with me as well. I have a son and a daughter. Son who's a senior, daughter who's a sophomore. Here with my fiance, Patty. She's got 4 girls, so we're the modern day Brady Bunch.
Good luck.
Yeah, that's a little bit about me, and I greatly appreciate the opportunity to be in front of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Maureen, do you have any comments you'd like to make, questions?
I thank you for applying, but I do have reasons for disapproval of the town manager's appointment. And I know under the Town Managers Act, I'm required to give my reasons for disapproval and open session, and it should be recorded in minutes. So first, I'd like to thank Joe for providing me with the resumes of the 2 candidates and the questions and answers for both candidates. I also want to thank him for the report issued by the consulting firm Public Safety Consultants, LLC. This was very helpful to me so that I could make an informed decision regarding the appointment. I would like to begin with the consulting firm's scoring, their evaluation, and their recommendation. On the scoring, consulting firm's scoring shows 0.6% difference between the 2 candidates. On the performance, both candidates performed at the low end of the well-qualified range. Recommendation for both candidates were both given the same recommendations if either were chosen, which was a seasoned police chief not connected with the town of Upton Department as a mentor for this role. Education. External candidate joined the Upton Police Department in July of 2005. He earned his master's degree in 2006 while working for the Upton Police Department. He earned his bachelor's degree in 2002. He remained as an officer with Upton until he left January of 2014. He then went to the Franklin Police Department and was an officer until he became a sergeant in June of 2021. This makes me believe, yes, he has the degrees, but I did not see his education used to further his career. The internal candidate earned his associate's degree in 2018 and is working towards his bachelor's. He was hired in 2019 by the Upton Police Department and was promoted to sergeant in 2020. My comments are the external candidate has a master's degree and a bachelor's degree and still scored 0.6% higher than the internal candidate. Do we want a hiring process that promotes from within when we have a qualified candidate already immersed in our culture as the police department and for the Upton residents? A candidate who has shown nothing but exemplary decisions and behavior, someone who strives to improve himself to be a better police officer. I, as one member of the select board, would feel proud to appoint one of our own that continues to improve. That we support a town employee who has equal qualifications, if not better than someone who is not vested in our community. I, as a member of the board, will support the internal candidate based on the report of the very well qualified consulting firm PSC. I think this would boost the morale of the department employees that we support and promote those that have equal qualifications, and we encourage growth within the department. And that is my reasons and comments. And I thank you very much for it.
Thank you.
Do you have any comments?
I don't have any comments. Well, I do have comments, and they would start first by thanking you for your interest, your application, your qualification, your work, your dedication, your commitment. It's phenomenal and exemplary. I would also thank and commend the search committee in the process that you went through. As a board member, we have the privilege of overseeing and participating in lots of very important work on behalf of the town. And I think that hiring and identifying and finding candidate for police chief is one of the most important things I think that we really do, because of the connection to the community, your reference to community policing and sort of caring for the community, being part of the community and providing those services is such an important obligation. And I think that I believe as a board member that we created this search committee and went through this process, asking some of our most trusted leaders and trusted community members, yourself, Laura, Chief Bradley, Joe, the other members of the search committee. And I, for one, I'm not close to the insider sort of machinations of what goes on in the department, but I certainly know that there are people on that committee that were. Chief Bradley was part of that committee, right? So I, as an outsider, trust the wisdom and the judgment of the town leaders that we asked to endeavor on this search. And so with that, I fully and unequivocally support the appointment of Mr. Palmieri.
So as you know, I was on the search committee and I found it fascinating. We had 19 applications, some from as far away as Texas, and I think that speaks to the reputation and the integrity of the Upton Police Department. We had a lot of conversations. We had a lot of people to wean down. And I should also mention, it's very unusual to get 19 candidates for a police chief, especially in a town the size of Upton. We did our due diligence. We had some very frank discussions, and we put forth, it wasn't just qualifications we were putting forth. We were putting forth the person we thought that would lead the department, that would take over for Chief Bradley and continue the upward path. I think the town has the greatest respect for our men and women in uniform. And we wanted someone to protect their integrity and their education and their training, just as Chief Bradley has. It was unanimous all the way through. You know, we put different people forward. different people did not make it forward. And at the end of the day, the committee was unanimous that you were the right person. And I firmly believe we did a wonderful job. You have some extremely large shoes to fill. I do think you're capable, and we entrust you with our finest. So I would also agree to put you forth as chief.
And I would offer that, right, part of what you'll be faced with is going into a department where you're coming in from the outside and you have an extremely qualified, well-respected, well-regarded and loved candidate that didn't get the job. And that's something that as a leader, right, you're going to have to work through and manage through the department. And it's, you know, organizational dynamics are complex, and they're particularly complex in local police departments and fire departments. And so that's going to be one of the challenges, but I'm fully confident that you're up for that challenge. So with that, I would move that the select board vote pursuant to section 4AI of the Town Manager Act to waive the 15-day right of refusal and approve the town manager's appointment of Nicholas Palmieri as police chief for the town of Upton.
I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Congratulations. Welcome.
Thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you very much. Thank you for
We
the
know
support,
department's been
for the
great.
family support, and for
And we
believing.
appreciate it. We have full
Thank you.
confidence.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks and congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming too.
Congratulations.
Moving right along, scholarship policy and application process. We've reviewed it. Does anybody have any comments, questions?
None here.
Not here.
Okay. Do I have here a motion?
I have it right in front of me, so do you want me to
Lost
read
This
it?
one here. You can cheat.
Oh, I move that the board approves and accepts the scholarship policy and application process as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Discussion of potential annual town meeting warrant articles.
We do a cemetery article, do we have to open up the warrant again?
Because we already have the language, I'm just gonna, put that on. And since it's, the warrant's open, we don't have to worry about anything like that. I just wanted to sort of see if there's anything out there that you may have heard, discussed, or thought about. I have, of course, the boilerplate. Staff and I are in conversations as far as some of the capital items specifically. For example, Dennis is going to be having Weston Sampson look at the envelope here. We had that penetration from the rainstorm a year ago. We need to do some repointing and sealing of the bricks to prevent that. So we're developing scope. So I'm going to have a placeholder, for something like that. We have at least a heads up from Lakes, Ponds and Streams that they're going to look for funding request. And also we have cemetery, while they didn't say it as part of this meeting, they are either going to be looking for funding, looking for CPC funding for some gravestone restorations. I'm working with the chair right now on a scope of services to retain consulting services. Whether or not they need additional money, that's what we're actually meeting next Monday to review. So if there's anything out there that, like a year ago, we brought forward the no solicitation bylaw. If there's anything else out there, let me know. If just in your spare time, think about. But I just wanted to sort of see what ideas we may have. Yeah. Well, that's.
Well, we got that money for the, from the community center, that can be reallocated.
That's true.
Yeah, and that's For some of those, because that 186,000. So there's some of those things that we will have to discuss, and I think once we get probably more to the fall town meeting, when we have a better idea of what the DPW looks like, and then select board and finance can decide, like, is that something that we put towards the DPW? Is there some other facility or feasibility study that needs to be done for sort of a like project?
Because I mean, because we're gonna have these competing priorities of, right, like the schools and the DPW are sort of the big things coming up that I see, right, obviously. And then there's some of the smaller things, like the things we want to do downtown with the center, potential renovation of Holy Angels and the public-private partnership, anything we might decide to do with that. So is there anything, obviously schools are going to be doing what schools are doing, that's sort of on a path. We have the DPW feasibility committee. I mean, what do we think the timing is on that?
Our hope is to have some better guidance for fall town meeting. We bring on OPM in February.
Yeah.
We're not dealing with a complicated project like community center or senior center or library.
Yeah.
This is a rectangular building. We already have previous feasibility work that identifies what the scope is. So this is going to be fairly straightforward for us to get to fall special town meeting with some form
of the next step in that process, whatever that might be. Because it's like you have to, I mean, I think we approved the funding a couple of years ago for the engineering, the design and all that stuff, right? So
up to 25%, that's what town meeting
got
approved.
it. So we'd have to go now to sort of
Correct. For completion of construction, then bidding. So that would be the next stage for funding.
Yeah. And we're thinking that we'll do that in the fall.
Yes.
And that'll probably
Another
be on
summer in
the
the
order
tin
of
can.
500 million. What's the number we think that would be?
For the finalizing the engineering and design.
Yeah.
Usually you're 10% of project cost. So for 10, you're looking at about one total.
Yeah. Okay.
So we already have 25% sort of in the bag.
Yeah.
But
we'll do that in the fall. And then, so anything else for spring that we could do with Holy Angels or any of that? I know the painting's good. Like we're going to get the outside done. That's all set. That's going to start. There's like the landscaping around there, the fence, like we didn't talk about any of the sort of grounds there, but now I'm thinking with this beautification money from Trask, like maybe there's opportunity to do some work. And do we need any articles to do that? Or is that something that the board can just do?
I think there's some we could just do using some of those new trusts where we've been 250.
Yeah.
I think part of it is, and this is what I've talked with staff. So we've executed a contract. The Collins Center is going to start assisting us with the development of the new capital plan starting in May. That realistically will influence our FY27 budget cycle. But some of these things like, developing a scope for what exactly at Holy Angels refurbishment, some of that could be CPC. Some of that we want to be able to develop the specifications so we can be a little bit more firm in what the request is.
Yeah.
So,
so nothing.
Discussion about town meeting articles,
ready to go.
Right, doesn't prevent us from, as part of the budgetary process, talking about all those things.
Yeah.
We talked about not only and I'll pass along, Michael and Chief McGowan have material that was referenced as far as the Jake bylaw.
Yeah.
I'll follow up with Michael, especially because planning board, they're not proposing any zoning bylaws, but taking a look at the nuisance bylaws to see what can be updated, that definitely needs to be on.
As the Board of Health has decibel meters, and we get complaints all the time.
Yeah.
And
do you really?
Yes.
For what?
We get complaints, a lot of it comes from the railroad and the pellet plant. We get complaints about, hey, the neighbors literally like leaf blowing at 4 a.m.
Yeah.
You know, things like that. We don't have any of those bylaws.
Dog barking.
Dog barking, you know, if you call animal control and say,
Noise bylaw about construction, but.
Yeah, right.
well, you too, so if there was, for example, if there was no construction on a Sunday, you would get a Sunday break from the jackhammers.
Yeah.
You know?
Noise
What is that
generated by
like?
any business use or commercial use lot. Oh, maybe that's what it is, because it's it's business, not residential.
Gee, we have one in agricultural.
Right, right.
So, you know, this is, it's
Okay,
just,
so-
let's take a look, you know,
Yeah.
I know Mike's been working his way through the bylaws anyhow, because you know, bottom line, before computers, one group would pass this one and this one
Yeah.
over here, and then come to find out that they totally conflict with each other.
I'm surprised
Or
we
they
don't,
don't
I'm
exist.
surprised we don't have those bylaws.
Bylaws.
We
I don't
should- we
think they've
should.
ever
I
been
think,
gone.
I think Mike, no, we should,
Doing
because believe me, if you've, because I only know this from experience, you know, when my husband was building, you'd get run around Tessie's tent, and they'd be like, well, it's not us, it's over there, and then that bylaw sends you over here, and then we go over here, and it's like,
You chasing
who
it.
the heck is in charge? Like,
Chasing it.
like I said, literally, this one says yes, this one says no. They do need, I think, I asked Michael one day, and he said that's part of some of his things to do, is he's trying to go through, and now, honestly, now that with AI and computers, it's getting a lot easier
Yeah.
to compare documents and go through them, but my theory was, if we're gonna do any type of a Jake break or a noise ordinance, let it be one and done. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't want a noise ordinance for leaf blowers. I don't want one for Jake breaks. I don't want, let's do it and do it right the first time.
And-
Whether or not the Jake break's enforceable, put a sign up. It might stop them. I doubt it, because I go into Holliston, my kids went to school in Holliston. I go into Holliston and, you know, there's a no Jake break sign, and what do I hear? I'm
Yeah.
Is
like,
that on the state highway?
no, 16.
Yeah,
So-
it sure is.
It sure is.
All they gotta do is complain.
Yeah. So, but yeah, so stuff like that. Let's,
Anything for finishing FISCAB, or is that all set for?
That's all set.
From a funding perspective. What else is going on? We have to do.
oh, I'm sure we've got a lot to do, but,
If your bridge is good, covered,
Yeah.
I didn't realize, I said to Joe when we got here, I was like,
station's good.
shouldn't our lights downtown just match the Grove Street Bridge? And he said we did underlighting, under the railroad lighting, so we didn't get I was like, oh, okay.
We
That's
didn't
all.
choose that under the economic development. We wanted lights.
Yeah, we wanted lights on either end of the bridge, I thought.
Yeah, on the walkway.
Yeah.
Didn't get them.
Shows you what power we have.
None.
That's where, you know, well, as part of this, looking at.
Well, it looks like the lights are gonna go down that way.
And again, you know, I think we're sort of take your, example, we're looking at a bridge, but now we have an opportunity of looking at a much larger area. If we need to
Yes.
revisit something with lighting.
Well, I can tell you,
Opportunity, to do that.
I mean, I know there's gonna be a walkway, but I will tell you, as a resident of Grove Street, people, whether they've had a couple or what, but they're dressed all in black. They leave,
I don't know why people are doing that.
they leave and they just walk, like they see, like, I can't tell you, my kid has come home and said, dear God, Mom, like, I'm coming down the road, and they just step right in front of me. And I don't think people,
They treat it like a sidewalk.
they do, and it's never.
Right, it's narrow, and it's more narrow now with the Jersey barriers.
Yes, the Jersey barriers and the cones, and I'm thinking, okay, geez, you know, yeah, I mean, it's, you know, we all
I know there's a
know.
little controversy about the walkway, but I think it's gonna be awesome.
Yeah.
I think it's
rather see the walkway. They
think
may
it's-
have to expand the bridge and you, this.
Well, not only that, but it takes out, honestly,
Yeah.
somebody goes up and down that road quite a bit,
That's right.
even during the day when people
You
are
see it.
walking there.
You
Yeah.
see
You know,
it, you
it's,
see it.
and when
You
I
see it.
walk, I wait, when I see a car coming, I wait, because
Yeah.
there's not really room for pedestrians, and cars.
Yep.
I kind of like myself, you know, I'm too old to be on crutches, so,
Love it.
yeah. Right,
Good.
do we have anything else, or,
They have crutches to walk by.
I don't
Well
know,
said.
I had a scooter and a peg leg when I broke my ankle.
We got future meeting topics and minutes.
Okay.
Okey dokey.
On future meeting topics, the only thing I don't have slotted in, Sue has pulled together, done some research and pulled together a RFQ for town council services, so I need to review that, and then we'll slot that in for a meeting to review, so we can go out. I did reach out to Lisa Burnett about rescheduling for what she wants to talk with the board about, littering and traffic. I just haven't received a response yet from her. I think even talking about these bylaws, I think getting on the calendar for something, because town meeting is early at May 1st. We choose something middle of May for after people are elected and onto boards for a multi-board meeting. If we had another meeting, just discuss like what we want to do with that, get it on everyone's calendar up front.
I agree, sooner the better. And if we can put the RFQ on the next meeting, gives you 2 weeks. Right.
Good. Thought we have one by now. Did anybody ever get back on the poll, on that poll hearing that we had? Nobody is.
Sue, I know you mailed the paperwork. As you heard, do you get, when you mail the paperwork in for the poll hearing, do they tell you they've at least received it? No? Yeah, I know, with the pipe.
I made the snicker.
You haven't gotten any calls or anything, right?
No.
What's the usual, if things were going correctly? Cause it wasn't stellar for me that National Grid didn't even show up. What's the normal turnaround time for them to receive it and respond? Or do they respond? Or when should we check?
How they would respond is they would take that, put in a work order to install the pole. And they don't notify us.
They don't.
They may do a dig safe request.
Okay.
But that's where, that's in this, it's
The unknown.
it's out of ours. I mean, the person who has the most leverage is them. The fact that they did follow on staff's recommendation to complain to Department of Utilities, probably is the best thing to sort of grease those wheels.
Okay.
They're just gonna have to be on top of National Grid.
I think they will be.
Been waiting.
Sorry, April?
Yeah, they're coming up on 10 months.
Yeah,
That's pretty sad.
It is.
it's, that's why to me, it's unacceptable. That's my favorite word, is it's just
Have
totally
they moved
unacceptable.
their other house to move into this one?
Because their realtor said she was worried they were gonna be homeless. Oh, I mean, yeah, isn't that great? You buy $1 million house and you're homeless because National Grid took over a year and can't seem to get a pole
Seem to
installed.
Get their act together.
Because they don't.
No,
I know that we can go on about that forever.
Yeah.
So approval of the regular meeting minutes for December 17th, 2024. Anyone see any changes? Additions?
Don't you?
I was good.
No, you sent them.
I already sent them and she fixed them, so.
I move that the board vote to approve the regular minutes of December 17th, 2024.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Sue, you do a spectacular job. I'm just super anal.
Great.
Eyes, because I don't, it's spelling, it's.
And some of it, honestly,
Streets, roads.
streets, roads, yeah, and to get like the Harvey J. Trust.
I think that.
Yeah.
That was one of them, and that's a hearing thing.
Something.
Harvey J. Trust, and I was like, Trask is in there. It was very, very minor, and it's,
Yeah. Kill another tree. Oh, yeah.
so, all right.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous at whatever time it is.
8:39.
8:39, nice.